Rally. I want to introduce myself. I'm Maxine Bowler. I'm chair of the Unite Not-for-Profit branch in Sheffield, which deals with the voluntary sector. I'm part of the Sheffield Anti-Cuts Alliance steering committee, the Trades Council executive, and obviously the People's Assembly. I hope you've had a really good time today, and I hope you've found the workshops really useful and enlightening. But this session really is a session about what we're going to do from here, because it's great to have all the good ideas, but we have to know what we're going to do next. And we've got a fantastic lineup to finish off. And so I'm just going to get straight into it really, and introduce John Rees, who was one of the original signatories to the People's Assembly statement, and he's going to talk to us about what we're going to do next. A round of applause.
Thanks very much. I just want to say first of all a little bit about how we conceived of the People's Assemblies and what's happened now, because I know that many of you will have followed it, but perhaps not all of you have done. We really began this process with a letter signed by a number of trade union leaders and political activists into the Guardian some time ago now, because we thought that this long into the government's austerity programme, but with still something like 70% of the government's austerity cuts to come, there really needed to be coming together of all the different elements of resistance to the cuts that had happened so far. And it's not true that we haven't fought. Of course, different people have fought, often fought magnificently. The student movement erupted in 2010, and that was a signal revolt, which in many ways almost shamed the trade union movement into taking up the pensions dispute, and through huge demonstrations and strikes through the pensions dispute. And of course we know that all over the country, nationally, locally, there have been a whole range of anti-cuts campaigns around the NHS, around cuts to the welfare service, around disabled people's cuts, taking up a myriad of different issues. But astoundingly, when you think about it, astoundingly, no one had said, look, we need absolutely everybody in one place, at one time, in one national organisation that can punch the weight that everybody knows we're going to need to defeat the government. So we said a very simple, almost a banal, almost a ridiculously simple thing. We said we've all got to get together. The student movement, the trade unions, the anti-cuts campaigns, absolutely everybody, the anti-war movement, because that's an issue that's to do with how we spend the national resources of this country. Absolutely everybody with an interest in not driving through austerity measures which will rip the heart out of the lives of many, many millions of working class people in this country, that will leave the welfare state weakened to the point of exhaustion in this country. If we don't want this to happen, we have to have a big, broad movement in which every single element of resistance can be brought together. Now, of course, we understand that people are going to fight where they are. Of course, the CWU are right and are going to fight, to strike, to save the Royal Mail. Of course the teachers will be on strike. Of course the NHS campaigns will continue. But at certain times, and in certain places, we need to focus all the forces from every element of the movement and hit this government as hard as it is conceivably possible to hit it. Because we know what these people are like. We know that in a cabinet of 23 people, there are 18 millionaires. None of them, not a single one of them, will ever suffer for a single moment from any one of the cuts that they are forcing through. They are absolutely immune to the effects of their own policy. We know what it takes to shift a government like that, and it's going to take the united resources of every section of the movement brought together. So that's what we're trying to do with the People's Assembly. And to be honest, the response to it showed that we moved too late. The response to it showed that there was pent-up demand for this idea, that we weren't the only people thinking this. but that hundreds of thousands of activists all over this country thought, yes, that is what needs to be done. That is what needs to be done. So when we called the People's Assembly on the 22nd of June in London, we booked the biggest, short of an exhibition hall. We booked Central Hall, Westminster, which holds 2,500 people, and we thought if we can do that, that would be more than double the size of any of the anti-austerity conferences that have happened so far. We wanted to be representative at every corner, and then we found the bookings coming in. And then we had to have the road closed, had a big fight with Westminster Council to close the road outside and to erect a marquee that seated another 700 people outside. And then we found more bookings coming in, and we had to book a hall down the road for another 1,000 people. And on the day, 4,500 people turned up. Now, I haven't seen a response like that. I haven't seen a response to a campaign like that since we began the anti-war movement right back at the beginning. We began the Stop the War Coalition right back at the beginning of the fight. And I think we can and are building a movement on that scale. There are now 70 to 80 people's assemblies in towns and cities, in villages in this country now. We're meeting here today. Newcastle are meeting today. 2 days ago, Norwich had an absolutely packed meeting, and in each one of these, just a week before, Liverpool had 600 or 700 people in the Adelphi Hotel, and that hasn't happened since the height of the anti-war movement. And that's good, because we are going to need every bit of this and more if we're going to defeat the government. But now, we've got past the point where we're establishing this. We know people want it, we know people respond to it, we know people understand this. It's even percolated up this week, so the TUC officially backed it, so we know we must be doing the right thing when that's happened. So now what we need to do is to turn the enthusiasm into effective action. And the first day on which we can do that is the 29th of September outside the Tory Party conference in Manchester. That has to be, that picture on that day has to be a sea of opposition surrounding a tiny, isolated island of privilege in the Tory Party conference. It has to be a message that's visible in every corner of this country, indeed in every part of the world, which sends a message that the people who are doing this to us are an absolutely tiny minority of the rich and powerful, and the overwhelming majority of the rest of us just do not accept it. We won't see the welfare state ripped to death in our lifetimes. We aren't going to see that happen without resistance, without an offensive which is aimed at breaking the government. But it won't happen just on one day. That needs to be a big demonstration. It needs to be a powerful demonstration. It needs to be the biggest demonstration we've seen in Manchester since the anti-war mobilisation. We had 50,000 people around that place. It needs to be bigger than that. And I think it will be bigger than that. When you look at the trains that are coming out, there are 3 trains coming out from London. A train by the People's Assembly, a train by Unite the Union, a train by the Unison Union. 3 trains and coaches. And then you hear the coaches coming from every part of the country. I think it will be a massive demonstration. But then on the 5th of November, we want direct action as well. We want to have a bonfire of austerity on the 5th of November. We want to make it so that this government understands that if you do this to us, if you make our lives unlivable, we'll make this country ungovernable. That's the message that we want to send out on the 5th of November. We want the rallies in the city centres. We want the loan sharks occupied. We want the roads blocked. We want the banners dropped. We want to see an expression of anger directed at this government on a day that they will not forget. And we want to see every single bit of solidarity that we can deliver for the trade unionists who are striking this autumn. We know what they want to do to trade unionists, and we know what they want to do to public services. We know they're willing to take on an institution as popular in this country as the Royal Mail and give it to their rich friends. We know that they will cut the fire service. We know that they will cut the provision for claimants and welfare recipients. We know what they want to do, and every group of trade unionists that stands up against them needs to have a level of public support which is different than the way it's been in the past. Needs to be different than simply going down the picket lines, although that's good. of simply delivering resolutions of support, although that's good. On those days, we want demonstrations of support with trade unionists. We want to make it absolutely clear that striking to defend your wages and conditions, striking to defend public services is popular in this country. It's something that people want to see. It's something that they want to see people fighting back and will go out and support them when they do so. We want to transform the environment in which strike action takes place so that we can get back to the point where there is coordinated and serious strike action that can affect the ability of this government to continue with the austerity policy. The message has to be, we are going to demonstrate, we are going to take strike action, we are going to take civil disobedience until the government abandons the austerity programme, and if it won't abandon the austerity programme, we will force it from government. That's the message that the People's Assembly has to be carrying out through this series of elections. It is unacceptable that somebody like Michael Gove is in charge of education in this country. It is unacceptable that somebody who is as deeply bigoted, prejudiced and ignorant should be allowed to be in charge of education in this country. It is unacceptable that a Foreign Secretary like William Hague and a Prime Minister like David Cameron can for the fourth time in just over 10 years, take us to the abyss, the Brinkman abyss of another war in the Middle East. It's unacceptable. And by the way, any Prime Minister who goes to Parliament, asks for a vote in favour of war and loses it for the first time since 1782, does not have a mandate any longer to run this country. It's illegitimate government. Nobody wants it. Nobody voted for it. Nobody needs it. We need to get rid of it, and we can build a new one which does that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, John. Just to echo what John's just said, there will be a People's Assembly open planning meeting on Tuesday the 17th of September at 6 p.m. at Sheffield Hallam University. There are leaflets on people's seats, but we do want people to come along because we do need to make sure that people come on a demonstration on the 29th and we build for the 5th of November, Day of Civil Disobedience. Our next speaker is Graham Wilkinson. He's the brigade officer for the Fire Brigade Union, where they've just balloted for strike action. Graham.
Thank you. I just thought I'd first of all give you a brief overview of where we are nationally with the FBU regarding strike action, and then locally in South Yorkshire. As you should all know, we've had a massive majority vote yes for strike action, nearly 80%. But we've been holding off for the last few weeks, hopefully to bring the government to the table again for some talks. In Scotland, the Scottish Fire Minister has already made an offer on pensions to Scottish firefighters. That's being discussed at this minute. The Welsh Minister approached the FBU, said he wanted some discussions, and just over a week ago we met with Brandon Lewis for some discussions. Nothing's come from them discussions in Wales and England. I think Wednesday is the end of our 28 days for when we can actually give notice for strike action. So on Tuesday our Executive Council members are meeting, and we should know by the end of that day when we're actually going to be going out on strike. Sooner rather than later, I hope. But locally, South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue have put what they call an integrated risk management plan to the Fire Authority. Now they do this plan every few years just to say what resources we've got and where they're going to go. But unfortunately, as the years go by, it all depends on how much money we've got. Now I joined the fire service in 1989 and every year has been cut. I've never known it grow, it's always shrunk. Now the latest cuts look quite good to the Fire Authority because what our managers are proposing is we're going to still keep 21 fire stations in South Yorkshire. We're still going to keep 27 rescue pumps, even though we're already struggling. But the slight changes they've made is to what they're doing on the main stations. And that's going to be the Parkway station, the new station that's going to be built in Sheffield, the station in Barnsley, Rotherham and Doncaster. Now, the second appliance on them stations is going to become part-time. It's going to be retained appliances. Now, currently on retained stations, if a retained firefighter gets a call, it's on a pager, and he has to respond to the station within 5 or 6 minutes on the appliance, and off he goes to the job, he or she. But what they're proposing to do with these new RDS staff is they're going to give them 15 minutes to get to a fire station. Meanwhile, the fires are already burning wherever. But they're not actually going to be mobilised to an incident. They're just going to be mobilised to a station to cover that station. So in effect, every station in South Yorkshire is going to have one fire engine. Shrinkage all the time. Now the main concern for us as a union, apart from us being concerned about members of the public, we're also concerned for our staff. What will happen now if a fire appliance turns up at a house fire? For a safe system of work, we need 9 firefighters. You're going to have 1 fire appliance turn up, which is normally only riding 4. Used to ride 6 when I first joined. It's only going to be riding 4 firefighters. They're going to either have to go in with any safe systems of way to try and rescue somebody, putting themselves at risk, putting members of the public at risk, or they're going to have to wait for the fire appliance to turn up from another station. Now, management has said that they can cover that, because what they're going to do, because there's only probably going to be 4 on a fire engine, they're going to send 3 fire engines to the incident. But that causes an even bigger problem, because then you draw 5 stations into one area and you're leaving massive gaps in South Yorkshire. All this is unsafe. If you look at the latest RMP, I think one of the opening gambits in it says we're still a safer South Yorkshire. We're a safer South Yorkshire because the figures say so. But the way the figures are reported are changing year on year. It's statistics. They do what they want with statistics. What you probably won't realise, when I first joined the fire service, if somebody was going to die because of what happened in a fire, it would go down as a fire death. But now what happens, as soon as they've left that building, if an ambulance takes them away and they die, it's not a fire death. It drops the statistics. But just a quick one, because I've got to sum up, we're limited for time. What you can do as members of the public is be part of the consultation process. It ends in about 4 weeks. If you go on South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue's website, you should be able to get onto the resources there to have your say. These cuts are going to cost lives. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Graham, and I think that's absolutely right. These cuts are going to cost lives. And if the FBU, if the fire service in Sheffield and South Yorkshire take action, then we need to make sure that we show solidarity during their picket lines and collect for them. Our next speaker is Barbara Natumi, who's the NUS Black Students campaign rep, and she's going to speak next.
Outgoing president of Sheffield College Student Union as well, and quite recently voted up to the Black Students Campaign, which is a campaign under the NUS, and also a representative of the Women's Campaign, which is another campaign under the NUS. In total, the NUS represents about 7 million students in the UK, so we are a really big force to be reckoned with when it comes to the government's austerity measures. I just wanted to talk about one of the campaigns we're doing at the minute is to get the NUS, National Executive Council, to take a stand on actually saying that they oppose the war in Syria, because at the minute they're saying that they don't want to take a stand, which we think is a loophole for saying, well, we'll wait and see whatever happens, and then whoever goes in, then we'll jump with that bad war on, which is completely wrong, because obviously I'm pretty sure that everybody here is against the attack on Syria. So I think there's a petition online, change.org.uk, asking the NUS president to actually make a stand to say no war in Syria. So if that's something you guys can support, we're really grateful. The second thing I want to talk about is I believe in free education. Malcolm X once said, education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. This government's attack on education has been absolutely diabolical. First they sold us the high tuition fees, and then really sold us by telling us that the payment plan was going to be better, which Martin Lewis claims that it is, so we'll go with him. But at the minute, they're trying to sell the student loans company to a private company. And what's going to happen is, once they get their way and they sell it to a private company, in 2-3 years' time, this supposed good rate that we've got and this supposed good interest that we've got will be completely hiked up, which means students, for example, like me and other people in this room, will be paying 3-4 times that we were promised what we were going to be paying. So that's another petition that the NUS is really involved in, not to allow the government to sell the student loans company to a private company that would just make money for the sake of making money, because that's what they do, and completely ruin the lives of students in this country. Another one of the campaigns which the Black Students Movement's really headed and really involved in the past year is the Bring EMA Back campaign. Does anybody know what EMA is? Right, okay. So EMA, I've been in the college system for about 4 years, and I can honestly say with my hand out, EMA helped me through this system. And it's absolutely disgusting that this government has decided to take away money from students that was going to help them through these tough times that we're in, and just be like, you know, fend for yourself, that sort of thing. So that's one of the campaigns that we're really involved in, to try and get the government to reinstate back EMA. A lot of people have made this argument saying, oh, EMA didn't cover everybody and it wasn't that great, blah, 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 you know, we need something better, which I completely agree. But these people are not actually putting forward an argument for what the better is. So I'm saying, in hindsight, we should just fight for something that we used to have back before, and then think about making it better, think about making it inclusive, because a lot of students still need EMA today, especially a lot of black students, because a lot of black students live in 80% of the poorest areas of this country. And EMA makes a world of difference in terms of bus fare, in terms of going to college, in terms of actually getting an education. So that's another campaign I'd really like you guys to support. The last thing I want to talk about is the 24 plus loans. People heard of that? Right, okay, so it's this new loan that the government has introduced into FE education. So if anybody is over the age of 24, whereas before you used to get a massive percentage of your fees if you do go to college to do a course funded by the government, right now you have to get a loan to actually fund the whole entirety of the course if you're 24 plus. There are some concessions that the president of FE of NUS won, which was that if anybody did get this 24 plus loans and they finished in college and they decided to head on to uni, that 24 plus loan was going to be written off. But for the majority of the people who are over 24, who will have to take these loans, who are going to college, are going to get reskilled, you know, have been made redundant, have been unemployed for a long time, they're looking to get into the job market. How can you expect somebody who's trying to improve the prospects to take out a massive loan to study in order to improve these prospects? It's just completely unacceptable, and that's what the government is doing. It's attacking FE. This is going to reduce the number of people that are over 24 that will want to go into college to try and reskill, to try and better themselves. That's going to reduce the amount of people that can do that, and that's another attack on our education system. So that's something I'd like you guys to support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Barbara. I think we do need to support all these struggles that Barbara's been talking about, because it's like very difficult for young people today in terms of getting a future. The cuts are having a massive impact on the hopes and aspirations of young people today. So please do support them. Our next speaker is Jack Scott, who is a Labour councillor for Arbourthorne, and he's a cabinet member for the environment. So I'd like a round of applause for him. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Max. And I represent Arbourthorne Ward, which, as many of you will know, is one of the most deprived wards in the entire country, and I'm the cabinet member for the environment in Sheffield City Council as well, and I work for a local charity. I came from my surgery this morning, and like all of you, I suspect, I see the impact every single day that this wretched government is having. And I suppose what I want to do is talk about how I think we move forward as a people's assembly, because this is a fight, and it is one that we have absolutely got to win. And as a council, we can do so much, and we are determined to do everything we possibly can, but we can only do so much. So we've committed to not evicting anyone affected by the bedroom tax when they tell us what's going on. We were, as well well as that, we were the first living wage council in England, and as the cabinet member, I've worked with trade unions to enforce that on my two subcontractors, Amy and Veolia as well. And we have funded over 300 apprenticeships as a council to give kids the skills and the start that they really deserve. But I think that we need to be clear that the calling of the People's Assembly is to be much more than just another protest movement or a collection of people protesting, because we know, and I know, that will probably just end in another Tory government and another 5 years of painful austerity. And actually, I'm fed up of talking about Tories. I want to talk about how we're going to move forward and about how today becomes a catalyst for bigger changes rather than a whimper that then fades away. So there's three things I think that we need to focus on in the discussions and in the plans that we have. The first is that we have got to recognise that diversity is the absolute fundamental strength of this movement. And looking around today and talking to people today, it is clear to me that there are people from all walks of life in Sheffield, all professions, all classes and all backgrounds. And that is how we are different to our opponents who live in this antiquated bubble where wealth only varies between those who have millions and those who have tens of millions. And I was very kindly invited to the last People's Assembly, which was very lively. And I promise you, I want to stand here for the Labour Party and promise the People's Assembly that every time you want somebody from the Labour Party to come here and listen and talk and learn, we will be here shoulder to shoulder alongside every single one of you. But we will not get anywhere. We will not get anywhere if we fight with each other, because the scale of the challenge that we face to stop austerity and rebuild our society is absolutely huge. So with the strength that comes from diversity is a big challenge too, because we aren't always going to agree with each other.
No, we're not.
And it will take us longer to work out what we're going to do to move forward because of that. But we must not give up on building a broad, diverse and lively movement where everyone has a role to play and where everyone feels welcome. Secondly, we need to make sure we keep our anger and our focus where it really needs to be. Because this government and its friends in the media has gone out of its way to blame the financial crisis and the state of our economy on the very people who had the least to do with causing it, but are now hurting the most. They are doing what they do best. They are pitting the poor against the poorer, and they are making them blame each other for it. And we have got to be honest with ourselves, because we won't get anywhere unless we are honest. That actually the government and their friends in the media is winning that fight in some parts of our society. And you have only got to look at the comments underneath newspaper articles to see that that is having an impact, and we have got to make sure that we do not allow the government to divert people's anger away from them and onto other people. And we must never ever forget that working class people, disabled people, unemployed people, single mums, nor council house tenants caused this crisis. But under this government, they are being blamed for it every day, in every way, and we have got to fight back even harder against that. Finally, I want to talk about hope.
Sorry, can we just be quiet while he finishes, really? He's come to speak, to be honest, so I think we have to listen to him.
Finally, I want to talk about hope, and I want to talk about plan, because us shouting at each other or shouting at a television screen doesn't help anyone to do anything. It just makes us feel better for a couple of minutes. And anger is not enough. We have got to have a plan. We can't just oppose. The People's Assembly has got to demand things. We can't just shout. We have got to act as well. And we must have a vision for the sort of city and the sort of country that we want, for an environment that isn't ravaged by carbon, for a society that is equal and involves everyone, and for an economy that works for all, not just a few at the very top. So I think for me there are three things. There's something about diversity that we need to do, there's something about purpose, and there is something about a clear plan as well. Because make no mistake, this is the fight of our lives, for our communities and our city. But we can only win that fight. We only have a chance of winning that fight if we work together, if we work with purpose, and if we demonstrate a more hopeful future that we can build. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks very much, Jack, for that. And I'm really pleased that you've announced that there will be no evictions. And I think we have to make sure that we hold it together. Obviously, there's a lot of people who feel quite passionate about the bedroom tents.
So much for the Scots movement!
Can we just... Right. The next speaker is Kevin Donnelly. He's the Vice Chair of the Regional TUC, and hopefully he will contribute to the debate that we're having here today.
Hello everybody. It's a shame Tony Ben isn't here actually, because I've got an apology to make to him. You know, many years ago he appeared in Leeds, and I was across the pub where the venue he was appearing in, and I went into the toilets, and there was this guy in the toilets, and he was completely blathered. He was so blathered that his head against the side of the wall of the toilet. And he said to me, he says, "Who's playing across the road, mate?" And I says, "Tony Bennett." And he went, "Oh, Tony Bennett. I love Tony Bennett. I left my heart in San Francisco. I'm going to go and get a ticket." So I wanted to apologise to Tony that if somebody turned up and asked him to sing at that event, I was to blame for that. So it's a shame he's not here, to be quite honest with you, for us to do that. But I mean, I've been asked to come along and on behalf of the Regional TUC and plug the 29th of September demonstration in Manchester. I mean, I'm not much of a cheerleader, to be quite honest with you. I don't have the legs for a start, but to be quite honest with you, I've been sitting and dipping into some of the debates, listening to some of the discussions, and just looking around this room. I know that you guys don't need G'd up for the 29th of September. You are ready to go for it. But I mean, there's just one thing I would say about this. I mean, there's been an awful lot of mobilising happening over the years. We've had M26, we've had M30, we've had O20, and now we'll get S29. I just hope we're not going to get through the whole bloody alphabet before we actually get something changed. And so that, I think this really, really needs to be different this time. Absolutely crucial that it's different. We need to be moving out there beyond the usual suspects for a start. We need to be sustaining the pressure, building the momentum, and creating an effective, broad-based, and most importantly, grassroots opposition to the Kurds. Because, I mean, let's be clear, comrades, the ruling class, they don't relent for a second. It continues to pile on the pressure and the general ongoing and historical onslaught on our communities. I mean, we've got the austerity contract, we've got the attacks on trade union rights and freedoms, the big society, localism bill, we've now got the threat to the private, to the postal service. Sorry, I can never get to call it Royal Mail, I always call it the postal service. But there was a comment made a few years ago by George Osborne, which I think is hugely significant. He actually said that he wanted, or the Conservatives wanted, to change the way that Britain is governed forever. That's clearly hegemonic. They are going for the hegemonic project, but still here, comrades. But what I would say is that hegemony also presupposes counter-hegemony, and that's where I think the People's Assembly is crucial in preventing some of that big picture thinking. It needs in building this, translating campaign into movement building, and having the working class at the heart, and bringing about a deep-seated mood and determination to resist the onslaught. I think translating this into a movement is absolutely crucial. I mean, I was reading or rereading Marx's Civil War in France recently. It was about the Paris Commune, and that was a crucial point that Marx made all those years ago, that for the Commune to have succeeded, it needed a movement underneath it. And I think it's crucial that the People's Assembly also is a movement there, because I don't think we're quite there yet. And I think that's why local assemblies are crucial, in bringing together the trades councils, local trade union activists, campaign groups, and working with and in local communities to help create this movement from the bottom up. And this is going to require really intensive, unglamorous and careful work at local level if it's to be successful. And that's again why I think local assemblies are absolutely crucial. And I mean, this is going to need the active participation of the trade union movement and also crucially the trades councils. I mean, I also sit on the TUC-JCC, which is the National Trades Council. It's a subcommittee of the General Council. We're backing the People's Assembly 100%, but we've got to be the heart of it, because I've got a feeling in other parts of the country, the trades councils and the trade union movement aren't as involved with People's Assemblies as they could be. They need to be absolutely a crucial part of it if we're going to keep this grounded and connected with ordinary working people. And I think to be really welcomed at the recent TUC Congress, it was a motion 54, and it talked about calling for a series of midweek days of action involving communities throughout the country. And that could be something that could lead up to this whole thing about the general strike and generalised industrial action. And I think local assemblies and trades councils working together could have a key part role to play in this. So let's keep the ball rolling and have the maximum turnout on the 29th. As if you need telling, but maybe there's more people out there need to get that message out to them, because we are the usual suspects to a certain extent. But also this time, let's keep up the pressure. Let's not just carry on mobilising for the sake of mobilising. So I hope to see you all there in Manchester. Cheers.
Right, before I call in the final speaker, I want to take the raffle that Jen has organised for the bedroom tax campaign, and just to give a few announcements. At the end of the meeting, there's going to be there's a card for people to sign to Tony Benn, because as people know, he was our main speaker, and unfortunately he's been taken into hospital, so we've got a card for him to come from the People's Assembly in Sheffield. And also there are tickets for the demonstration on the 29th, and we want everybody here to put their names down and buy their tickets now, because we have to make that demonstration the biggest possible demonstration we can. So that's that at the back. Jen, do you want to draw the raffle? I don't know what the prizes are actually either. Perhaps Jen will tell us.
Okay, first prize is the wonderful Lush goodie bag, which was actually donated to the campaign by the manageress of Lush for us this week, so we're very grateful for that. And it's number 273.
Has anybody got 273? Oh, big round of applause.
Ladies and gents. Okay, second prize is a bottle of red wine and a bottle of elderflower fizz if you'd rather not have the alcohol, and it's number 295.
Anybody got what's 295? Okay, ooh, round of applause.
Oh, look who it is! And third prize is a bar of green and black's chili chocolate and some organic homemade red currant jam that my friend Susie has donated.
It's number 36. Got a name on the back. It's Laura J, who I think is on the desk at the back. She's coming. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much. We've raised just over 60 quid today, and that's been split equally between the Sheffield Bedroom Tax Campaign and the People's Assembly organisation. So I've got a bag of money for you, Maxine. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you. Right. Our final speaker is Karen Reisman. She's last but not least because she's a health worker from Manchester. She's on the Unison NEC. She actually was victimised as a nurse, and she's here today to tell us what we should be doing.
Thanks very much. I'm not going to talk a lot about the attacks that the Tories are making, because I think in some ways we all know the attacks that they're making. I think one of the things that they want us to forget is the reason for these attacks is not because they spent too much on us before, not because we spent too much on the health service or education or benefits or any of the other things that they've criticised us for. The reason that this country and a large part of the capitalist world is in the mess that it's in is because of the craziness of the market system, because the mad speculation of business funds, hedge funds, bankers and the idiots who think they can gamble money, and when it makes a profit they can pocket that profit, and when it makes a loss they want to come to us and try and rob the ordinary working class people of the world who've made all the richness and the wealth that exists in this world. To rob ordinary people, they want us then to fight amongst ourselves about the scale of who should be robbed. So they want us to say, when it comes to migrant workers who come here, is that somehow when we've had enough of you, that you're dispensable and we can send you back. And the problem is, once you accept that migrant workers are dispensable, then to be honest, we're dispensable too. It creates the illusion that we're all dispensable and makes it acceptable. If you think that people who come into this country should be charged for their NHS, something which costs 0.13% of the NHS budget, unlike the £3 billion that it cost to put the market into our budget in a reform that we never asked for and we never wanted, it makes the whole notion of NHS charges acceptable, initially for a minority, but there is no doubt it will be for you and me next. It's a divide and rule. Bedroom tax is not particularly to take a few pence off people who only have a few pence more than they're trying to take. But the point is to blame the housing crisis not on this government and the last government that chose to sell off every single council house going and not build any more, to blame the few people who come into town and have a spare bedroom. It's about scapegoating, divide and rule. It's about undoing all the things that we've won over the last 100 years and reverting us back to the charity, the poverty, the begging, the indignity that people used to have 100 years ago. And it is no wonder that people are angry. People are absolutely furious up and down this country. And I think we have to be clear that we are not prepared to allow them to divide and rule. And whenever they come up with their racism, their sexism, their homophobia, their Islamophobia, their anti-disabled rhetoric or any of the rest of it, we will say absolutely no, 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 never. But I think the other thing that we have to address, and I think it's something that's affected people right across Britain, is that 2 years ago we had a pension strike where we did unite together. Right across the public services, we united and fought. And technically it was about pensions, but it was actually about the services we worked for, it was about the amount of money that we had, it was about the bankers stealing off us, it was about all the things that we're here today to talk about. And 2 years ago, on November the 30th, when we struck together and we marched together, we felt strong together. We felt that we could dent and get rid of this government that's pushing through this horrendous austerity package. And I think one of the questions that runs through this meeting and runs through the British working class at the moment is, where did that movement go? How did we let a movement that was so strong fall through our fingers? And I think that can be demoralising for people. And therefore, despite the fact that those attacks are unrelenting, and despite the fact that we are going down and down and there feels like no end to what's going on, it's not the case that the action that we see in this country at the moment matches the level of that anger, because there is a gap in people's confidence. And I think that's what we have to address.